participation meeting. And pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 18, and the governor's March 23rd, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. All votes during this meeting will need to be conducted by roll call. No in-person attendance is being permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Public participation will be permitted by allowing members of the public to join this meeting via Zoom or via the telephone, and comments can also be sent in by email to public comment at yarmouth.ma.us. And I will now take a roll call vote to enter into a meeting quorum. Roll call vote, Mike Stone.
Aye.
Tracy Post.
Aye.
Dan Horgan.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Now I would like to ask everyone to join us in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag
of the United
Yes.
States of
States of
America,
America,
and to
to
the
the
republic for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
for all.
Thank you, everybody. The first item on our agenda for this evening is public comments. And I'm going to ask Kyle to assist in the public comments.
Yep,
So,
first up is Mr. Mike Duffy.
okay, Mr. Duffy, you have the floor.
Okay, I'm unmuted. You can hear me?
I think we can hear you. Is that,
Everybody hearing me? Okay. Mr. Chairman,
yes,
fellow board members,
we can hear you now.
my name is Mike Duffy, and as the solo coach for the Solarize Plus Yarmouth program, I would like to bring you up to date with the current status of our ongoing program. As you may recall, this is a community-based clean energy outreach and education program that will drive down the installation costs of small-scale solar PV installations and air source heat pumps, also known as mini splits, by means of a group purchasing model. Through the efforts of the Yarmouth Energy Committee, the town of Yarmouth was awarded an $11,000 grant from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. Although we received this grant in January of 2020, the pandemic has delayed our launch by a little over a year. Last week, we selected Solar Wolf Energy as our preferred contractor for the installation of solar PV systems, and a second preferred contractor for mini split heating and cooling systems, South Shore Climate Control from Sandwich. We will be having our first joint meeting with the contractors and the Clean Energy Center tomorrow to lay out our plans for formally announcing the selection of these two installers to the residents of Yarmouth. Our entire team of community-based volunteers is convinced that we have a great PV partner who has been able to offer the best solar panels available on the market at a deep discount. This means dramatic savings on a solar installation for all Yarmouth residents and small businesses who choose to participate in Solarize Plus Yarmouth. With regard to mini split heating and cooling systems, we have selected a local Cape Cod installer who works with the two types of mini split systems considered to be the best available today, Mitsubishi and Fujitsu. We have also arranged for excellent low-cost solar loan terms to be offered by Cape Cod 5. I hope that many Yarmouth residents and small businesses will be able to take advantage of this time-limited opportunity. They can contact us in one of three ways. Telephone 508-776-1914, via email solarize@yarmouth.ma.us, or our website at solaryarmouth.org. Or they can find all of those 3 contact points on the town's website. So thank you for your attention and your support in this exciting program.
Thanks, Mr. Duffy. Seeking recognition, we have Jill Talladay. Jill, Kyle, can you unmute Jill?
Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jill.
Great, thanks. Hi, everyone. Jill Talladay. I'm the co-chair of the RASWAC Recycling and Solid Waste Committee. And my comment this evening is regarding the status of the enforcement of the plastic bag ban bylaw as it relates to COVID restrictions. And I've noticed town businesses that are still using them, even though Governor Baker has lifted the restriction on reusable bags and the suspension of the plastic bag ban back in July. My co-chair, Carol Ewing, was one of the petitioners and for the bylaw and sent an inquiry several months ago to the health department, who is the enforcement agent, but hasn't received a reply regarding the status. Specifically on last Saturday, I went to Shaw's Supermarket, and on my way, ironically, I encountered a tumbleweed of a Shaw's single-use plastic bag rolling down the street. And when I inquired with the customer service about it, they said that they had their town or their store manager had actually consulted with the town on several occasions to make sure that they were in compliance. And they were told that it was acceptable during the pandemic to be using these bags. So, we absolutely respect all of the focus that the health department has placed on keeping us safe with COVID. But it's also concerning the fact that, litter, single-use items have increased during the pandemic. If we look around town, we're all concerned about how we present ourselves, the impact of plastic on our environment and on the wildlife, and how we present our community to the visitors that we're inviting here. So I'm just respectfully inquiring as to how the town is responding to inquiries such as this, and what the position is regarding enforcement of the plastic bag ban.
Okay, well, as you know, Jill, we can't engage in Q&A on this, but we'll obviously make sure that there's a response to your
I
question.
appreciate it.
Okay. Before I recognize anybody any further, I apologize for not acknowledging the presence of a new face here at the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen meeting. And I just wanted to introduce and acknowledge our new town administrator, Bob Rittenauer. Bob, it's great to have you on board, and welcome to Yarmouth and to our meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to be here.
And I'm glad to see that you're appropriately cited by Bass Hole, which has been a topic of ongoing conversation. So it's good to see that you're out there inspecting the conditions. And I want to acknowledge the presence of our new interim assistant town administrator, Mr. Bob Lawton. So we'll be hearing more from these two individuals later on, but I apologize. I should have acknowledged right off at the beginning. So thanks again for being here, and once again, welcome.
Thank you.
So the next person seeking recognition for tonight is Vita Morris. Kyle, can you unmute her? Thanks.
Yep.
Hello.
Hello, Vita.
I'm so glad you caught your oversight, because I was going to ask you for it. Welcome, Mr. Rittenauer, and hope you will have a very good relationship here in town with us. But I'm about to launch into a diatribe here, so we'll have to see. I just couldn't believe when I looked at the packet that we have a group of people who don't seem to have enough things to do under these conditions, especially to get involved with the town seal. I don't think we were even called racist. I mean, it was minor things or something like that. And suddenly we have a whole group of people spending all that time and effort. And I guess the town clerk must have told them they couldn't possibly help them out at this point. They're getting ready for the election. I just don't understand, what's gotten into people. and why we need to make all these changes, or even consider them, and to spend so much time and effort on such a thing. I mean, can they find themselves something more useful to do during this pandemic? Honestly, I'm sorry, but I wish, yeah, as I said, that they would find something more useful to do. Thank you.
All right, and the next person seeking recognition is Mr. Tom Nicanello.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Tom Nicanello, Precinct 3. Just representing the Chamber of Commerce. Last week we had the Seafood Sam's manager coming up and they didn't show, so we'd just like to reinforce our gratitude to the Seafood Sam restaurant, and we endorse the manager. As you know, they're a very important business in our community. Businesses, it's very important to our community. Our scale is quite low, and they're also a big proponent of the sand sculpture trail, which brings a lot of people here to town, which is coming to fruition again this year for our 10th year anniversary. And I think our executive director, Mary Vilbon, is doing an outstanding job. I think she's crested the 20 mark. So hopefully we'll get to the 30 mark. But with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to invite, with the virus, our technology has always improved a little fast, and we were able to do these meetings via Zoom and be anywhere we want. So we just like to invite you and the board, as you probably have Mary's number, anytime you want to feel free and welcome our, come to one of our board of directors meetings, you're more than welcome. I know about our new town administrator, our permanent administrator is with you tonight, Mr. Bob Wittenhauer, and we'd like to welcome Bob. Bob was gracious enough to give us a few moments of his time a couple of weeks ago, and he participated in one of our board of directors meeting, and he got to see the young faces of the business people in town. And Bob, we'd just like to welcome you to our community. The Board of Selectmen love our community like our directors do on our board. We all live in town. We volunteer our time to make sure we understand the history, we understand the presence, and we know where the future is going. I see we have a full agenda tonight, Mr. Chairman, which is exciting, and I'm sure you'll put your seal of approval on everything. So with that, thank you and good night.
Thank you, Mr. Nicanello. Appreciate it. All right, the next item on the agenda is an update from our health director, Bruce Murphy, on COVID-19 in Yarmouth. And Carl, if you could help get Mr. Murphy set up here. Bruce, the floor is yours. Welcome. Can you hear us, Bruce? We can't hear you.
There we go.
Now we can hear you.
Welcome, Board of Selectmen, Bruce Murphy, Director of Health, Town of Yarmouth, and welcome to our new town administrator. Thank you. You can see that we're in the third wave, what we're saying right here. From the beginning, where we had a top of 40 cases, active cases per day back in May, April, May. Then we went to December, January, where we had the uptick, the high part of almost 170 cases, 180 cases in one day being active, right around December after Thanksgiving, coming down. And now since March 9th, we've seen what I've said is the start of the third wave, where we hit at one time 110 active cases within the town. Over the last couple days, we've seen it come down a little bit. So I'm hoping that it's at least leveling off, but the cases come in daily, and sometimes the state releases a couple different each night. It will come in a batch. So it'll take us a few more, at least a week, to see if we're hopefully leveling off. Okay, thank you. Currently, we had 1,470 cases from the start of March 11th. We're monitoring 82 active cases currently, and we have 31 deaths. Thank you. As we break it up by village from the beginning, you can see what we're saying is community spread between West Yarmouth 609, South Yarmouth 55, 5, and then Yarmouthport, where the population is a little less, it drops off. So we've seen a total of 1,470. If we can just stay here for a second, Kyle, because I know Tracy had a question last time when I was talking about community spread. It's out in the community, and where do we see it most? And Tracy was right that we do see most of the community spread in clusters coming from households. That's the #1 area by far when you look at the state cluster map. After that, it kind of drops down considerably to childcare, long-term care facilities have dropped way down. Retail services, restaurants, and schools have dropped way down. So it's still in the community, obviously, because they're bringing it back to the households, but it's being spread more in the households and going out. So that was a great question Tracy had last week that I wanted to follow up on. Okay. We're still breaking it down by age group, and we can see we're still probably for the past several weeks have been the highest between in the age group of 50 to 59 total cases. And then pretty much after that, the age group is pretty much very close together between 20 and 70. Very, very close together. I did highlight a little that second is between the 20 to 29, just so that we're reaching out to people in that age group. That's important that they understand that it's still out in the community. So it's really pretty close to all grouped together. We can see just from last Tuesday when I was here, our total went up from last Tuesday to today, 56 cases. And then over the weekend, it went up 24. So not spreading quite as quick, but something that we're still watching. Thank you. The breakdown by Cape Towns, again, Yarmouth is third week in a row as red high-risk community. Also joined by Barnstable as a high-risk community with the 2 highest % positivity rates over the last 14 days of the 2 towns in the whole Commonwealth. We also see joining us 5 other Cape Towns again that are in the red, and most of them, matter of fact, all of them have moved up even higher in the red. So obviously it's spreading out what we see a little bit more from the Mid-Cape, Barnstable, and Yarmouth, and now we're seeing higher cases, in Dennis and Sandwich also moving out. The next group of towns in yellow, which is just under the red communities, obviously, are also seeing higher rates increase. So we're seeing higher rates across the Cape, and that's contributed to, we're seeing more of the P1 variants in town, in the county, also the UK variants, and people not taking all the precautions they need to take. Thank you. But you also see Yarmouth and Barnstable, even though we were the highest 2 percentivities, Barnstable came down a lower, and Yarmouth remained no change. So we're hoping that's, we're not sure if we reached the peak, but we hope we're at least leveling off, at least for this week and hopefully forward. Hospitalizations as of yesterday, at least the Cape Cod hospitals down a little bit in both beds in ICU. Of course, then you have Falmouth being up. So relatively, it's down just a little bit. Thank you. The deaths remain the same. We still stay at 31 since February. We're happy to hear that news as we monitor the nursing homes and Cape Cod Hospital. So whether it's just not hitting the people as hard anymore, and I think also that we have everybody in the nursing home vaccinated now. I think that's a big help. We still have that range of 63 through 99. But I think vaccine in the nursing home has helped. There was a question about a week ago. Some of the 2 nursing homes we had were not getting some vaccine that they needed to vaccinate people that needed second doses or new people coming in. So both nursing homes were able to keep reaching out to DPH. I also reached DPH, and but I think the nursing homes from their effort did receive their vaccine for additional people within the nursing homes, and also their staffing, which I think is important, that we're working to get the staff up to fully vaccinated. So I think that's a big reason why we haven't seen any more deaths in a month. Okay, precautions. I know I keep saying this every week, but unfortunately, not everybody's listening. We're still having gatherings, dinner parties that we had, a small dinner party that you think you're okay, but unless everybody at your dinner party's in your bubble or have been vaccinated, we're still seeing a positive come out of that. A couple positives last week. Not everybody was at the dinner party was vaccinated, so as chance had it, person came down with COVID. Birthday parties, people are still having birthday parties. They don't need to, even though the governor says you can have 10 people inside, you can have your outdoor birthday party. The kids, everybody's just too close together. As I mentioned before, we had an adult birthday party that also had a positive case spread out of it. We're still seeing sleepovers. That's difficult. We're seeing cases come from that. We just had a case come in this week from a bachelor's party. The older brother went off Cape to the bachelor's party. Several people from the bachelor's party come down positive. Brother comes home, spreads it into the family. So I just can't keep stressing enough maintaining social gatherings, avoiding social gatherings, and wearing a mask. I know it's COVID fatigue. It's good weather, people are outside, but precautions are still needed. People are getting vaccine, they feel a little safer, but they're still not all taking precautions. So I have to keep stressing that. I know it's something I say every week to the Selectmen and Board of Health, but it's something that we need to keep practicing at least for the next couple months as more vaccine becomes available and more people get vaccinated. Thank you. Discussion points. I know I've mentioned these discussion points last week, and you had the talk on the Bass Hole, Cabana, and Flax Pond. Right now, we do have a pause on it for the large rentals of those that we just can't see renting to 150 people outside. We've paused it until May 1st, and we're working with Recreation Department, Amy Howell, who's maintaining a list of who we can open up to, maybe at a lesser of a number. So we're in close contact with them. I talked to Amy today and how we could work on small numbers to at least get some rentals out there and people more outside, which is what we want them to do, but maybe not at the higher numbers in that area. Landfill stickers seem to be going well this year. We did not seem to need to bring in the trailer for separate sales at Town Hall, so that's a plus. They're also providing the landfill stickers at the Chamber of Commerce, so they're doing well down there. Beach parking lots, that will probably do something as we did similar last year from talking to Amy Howell, and you probably have an email from Pat Armstrong, but it went very well last year is monitoring the beaches so they were not overcrowded. And that worked out very well between the DPW park attendants and beach lifeguards and beach supervisors. That worked out very well. Homer's Park and Route 6A can be a challenge during the week. The good weather, sometimes we go by and see the courts packed. There can be 20, 30 people up there, kids playing, which is great, but unfortunately, only probably 2 or 3 have a mask on. So that's something that we're watching closely, because obviously we don't want any spread there to go back into the school. So we're keeping a very close eye on that, along with our 2 soccer fields that we have pick up soccer on Sundays at 2 of our fields at Sandy Pond and Homer's Park. I talked to both groups this Sunday afternoon, last Sunday afternoon, about wearing masks. And I know Sandy Pond will start having youth soccer out there. But again, it's just another group of people that have played there on a regular basis that also need to take precautions. And continuing working with Recreation on their plan for their events coming up this summer. Okay. This is same as last time that I'll, as we get information in, I'll be keeping your town administrator up to date on approvals as they come before us. I think the new one that we're working on today is Memorial Day. So we can get at least a drive-by like last year. And we're working on the indoor dining that I mentioned quickly last week, that I'm working very closely with Mark Grills and building department as he reviews occupancy, and that I review septic system capacities. I just want to be a little clearer. Last year, when we reviewed the restaurant for outdoor dining, was probably a little bit easier, because if you had a typical 100-seat restaurant and there was no inside dining, then it was very easy to say you could have 100 seats outside. And then the governor opened it up slowly between 25% occupancy up to 50% occupancy. So it was a lot easier to deal with last year. Now restaurants can have 100% inside as long as they can keep them 6-foot spacing or with plexiglass. So we're working with them on seating adjustments, working with Mark what's available, and working with probably at least 15 restaurants right now that will be coming back to do their outdoor dining. That was very successful last year, and I think we'll be seeing that as we go forward. Okay, thank you. Vaccine, we move into the vaccine section. I just wanted to throw this chart in again because obviously we need to get the vaccine out to people that are still getting, positive in the community, and the more we can get the vaccine out is helpful. Okay. We saw the governor went down to the next eligible group that started Monday, the age 55 and older, or people with one medical condition. So that's a new group that's now eligible, getting shots and applying through the state system, getting shots at applying for shots at the community college and Cape Cod Healthcare. We'll see later in the month on the April 19th, where the governor's opening up vaccinations to everybody 16 and over. So at that time, we will see more vaccinations, hopefully continue within the state and in the county area. Okay, thank you. Just an update on where we sit. I know this is a good week old within Yarmouth where our vaccination sits, but we can see we're doing very good down in the age 75 group. The vaccine is getting out there, that at least 3,000 people have had at least one dose is what we're looking for. We still need to reach out to about 400. We might have a little bit more of that population, but overall we're doing very well there. And then when we get to that 65 to 74 year age group, we've got 3,000 vaccinated, and we still need to reach out to 1,000. So that's been making progress over the last couple of weeks with people getting out there. And then the big group that just became eligible, the 55 and older, we still need to do about, 2,000 have already got their shots, but we still need to reach out to probably 3,000. So overall, we probably need to reach out to about 4,600 in this group. And I think that we'll see that number increasing. More vaccine has been distributed to the county this week, so we can get it out to Cape Cod Community College. They've gone up to, as we remember, we'd only get 975 doses. That's been increased a little bit each of the past several weeks. They're hoping, the county's hoping for about 3,400 this week of all different vaccines. Along with the hospital has had their allotment increase, that they're should be receiving about 5,000 this week. So that's a great number for the Cape. We've reached out to the Council on Aging. Diane Kane's doing a great job keeping Cape Cod Healthcare updated with lists as people call the Council on Aging, we're passing over additional list. We originally passed over 4,000 names to Cape Cod Hospital. They have gone through that whole list once. They didn't reach anybody, not everybody, I should say, all the time. So they've gone through the list a second time, calling for people if they need shots. Some people have already had shots. Some people weren't home. So they're going through the list a third time. And Diane from the Council on Aging is probably giving them another list of 60 names to add to that tomorrow. So that's an ongoing program between the Council on Aging and Cape Cod Healthcare. Thank you. Vaccination plans, as I mentioned, we're going up from the 975 over the last few weeks is great. We're hoping that over the next couple weeks that if the vaccination allotment continues, that we'll be able to also go down to some sub-regional sites, back to Falmouth Fairgrounds, and then hopefully down to Orleans DPW that had originally started while continuing the large site at the community college. The South Yarmouth CVS is very steady with appointments every day, and they're doing about 140 cases every day there, vaccinations. Thank you. Again, the vaccination plans are based on the vaccine, which is increasing, and we continue to work with Harbor Community Healthcare in Hyannis and then out of Cape Healthcare VNA. Okay. Homebound, we're reaching out to the homebound. It's great news. We'll be able to start vaccinating the homebound Monday, working with the fire department team that I'll talk a little bit more about. But our homebound we've reached out to them through Council on Aging, did a great job calling everybody, sending messages and emails out. We've been putting slips in the Meals on Wheels, staying in close contact with them. And I've reached out to all our local churches and visited another one today just to see how they're making out on vaccinations and if we can help any list of new people they might have on homebound that might need vaccination. So that's working very well that we can reach out. Our vaccination team is shown next. Kyle, thank you. Health Department, Council on Aging, Police, Fire Department. I'll be meeting with Chris McMahon at the Fire Department tomorrow. We'll be going over the list of approximately about 170 homebound people that we need to reach out to. You know, you have to wait 15 minutes after you give them the vaccine. So that slows the team down to, you know, that's 4 an hour. And then you got travel time. So there'll be multiple fire department teams going out probably for several days as we reach out to those people. We'll have it broken down. I've broken it down and working with Diane by village. And then I worked with IT to put it up on a GIS map so we get an idea where we're heading to. So that's been very helpful with that. We'll be working tomorrow to schedule that. We'll be working, okay, Kyle, thank you. The vaccination team, this particular case will be working with Outer Cape Community Health. They have the vaccine that we'll be doing. In this particular case, it will be the Johnson & Johnson. So the homebound will just be one visit, which will be great. We did probably wait a week to make sure that we got the Johnson & Johnson instead of trying to start earlier and had to get out 2 shots. So we thought that was the better decision. So vaccination team's ready to go and we're ready to go out starting on Monday. And I think I'll end up with my last 2 slides. People can still call the county helpline. I know a couple people have called that just for assistance to get into the community college. You're just updating a few things. People that have had shots at the community college or Cape Cod Healthcare that are waiting for their second shot because they don't get a notice right when they get their first shot. Some of them are starting to get called now when their second shot will be. They usually call you about a week or so ahead of time. So people don't have to feel nervous if they don't get their date right when they get their shot or a week after. They will be contacted. So just be patient on that. I'll end up with the Council on Aging. Anybody at home that needs assistance, we can help them also try to get on the Cape Cod Healthcare list. And anybody that's still homebound, we'll be continuing to doing that all next week. And I'm sure we'll be doing some follow-up the week after. So we'll continue to stay out within the population of the town. So that concludes the overall presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. I'd like to ask the board members if they have any questions or comments. I'm going to start with Dan Horgan. Dan, do you have any comments, questions?
Just a quick one, Bruce. With the homebound services with the police and fire, I imagine that there's going to be some costs incurred with that, possibly with overtime. Do you have an estimate of how those costs are going to play out, and are they going to be covered by the COVID monies that the federal government is offering?
Yes, great question. They will be covered under the CARES COVID money. They've been using that a couple times when we've done the first responders. Obviously, they've been covered by that, but yes, they'll be covered under the CARES Act.
Okay.
Anything
Thank
else,
you.
Dan?
No.
Okay. Mike Stone? Mike, do you have any comments, questions?
Yes. With respect to the homebound program, what role, Bruce, do the police play? I can see the EMT guys possibly delivering shots or monitoring patients, but can you tell us what the role of the police is in this team?
Well, we don't have a set role for them, but they've offered if they need if we need any assistance, they would be available. Whether we needed vehicles or if we had a location that might be difficult on a street that might be on a corner or something, that if we needed any assistance, they would be helpful.
The other observation that I'll make is even after all this time, I'm surprised that the 75 and older, only 39% are fully vaccinated, if I read your chart correctly.
With at least one shot. Let me go back to it.
And with respect to the 65 to 74, that figure is even lower. It's 29%. Those, if I read that chart correctly, those stats seem not, if you look in the far right column, portion of town fully vaccinated. Am I correct that 75 and up, only 39% are fully vaccinated?
Fully vaccinated, right.
Now, if I'm looking at that same age group that have any kind of a vaccination, that would be 31%, correct? It'd be even lower.
Correct.
So, I mean, we're going on to these other age groups, and I can certainly understand why, but it seems still like this senior population's behind the curve with 39% vaccinated over 75 and up and only 29% 65 and up. I don't think those are good numbers personally.
Well, I think you also have to look at the fully vaccinated per capita, which is higher within that age group that we've reached out to, that 72%. I believe that's the way we're reading it, because the population of 36, when we go to the first column of 3,600 in that population of 75 and older, we've given out 3,200 first doses. So just in that age group, we're reaching out that part of the population. That 89% of that group has at least one dose.
Okay, then when we go to the next column in that same line, it says,
yeah,
proportion of town individuals with at least one dose.
So we've done 31% of that age group. 31% has had at least one dose.
Okay, and
31% of the town. 31%, yeah, of that.
Well, what is that? 31% of what? Is that 31% of the 75 and over population?
Yes. I believe that's the way they're looking at it. It's,
And similarly,
mhm.
see, here's what I don't understand. And it says in the proportion of fully vaccinated individuals, 39, but to the left of that, it says fully vaccinated individuals per capita. So what does that mean with respect to that particular line? The 75 years and older, fully vaccinated individuals per capita, 72%. What does that mean?
That's a good question. I would say, I'm just looking at that a little bit more now. That at least 72% has been fully vaccinated. 89% has received only one dose. So some people are still not fully vaccinated in that age group yet.
So then how do we get from 89%, if you're reading it that way, having had one dose, then I'm assuming 72% would have two doses. Then
So those people
how
are
do
still
we
going
drop
forward.
down to 39% in the final column?
Fully vaccinated.
I don't understand. I can't reconcile those percentages.
Yeah.
If I could just butt in real quick, the 39% is the proportion. So these all add up to 100%.
Yes,
So
they should have put 100 down the bottom.
yeah, it's 39% of the proportion of the
Of
population.
the town population?
Yes.
That's been fully vaccinated is in the 75% group, if I'm reading it correctly. Someone else can correct me. Just wanted to get some clarity.
Okay, so I get what you're saying. So you're saying then that the number of people 75 and older that have been vaccinated comprise 39% of the total population of people who have been vaccinated?
Yeah, I believe the proportion means that of the people in the town of Yarmouth that have been fully vaccinated, 39% of them are 75 plus.
Okay, that's not as dismal as I thought then, if that's the way that column translates.
Well, that's fully, yeah, because a lot of people are still getting their second doses now. I think as we move up, the next probably week, this comes out once a week, we'll see that it jump up quite a bit more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tracy, do you have any comments or questions?
No, mostly just continued thanks. I know that this has been lengthy for all people involved. I think Bruce answered my question. My question going into this meeting was the rate of which we are vaccinating our homebound. I noticed a lot of other communities have already completed that or are well into it. So I was a little bit concerned, but I think to his point of waiting for the Johnson & Johnson to do it once is probably a smart move. I just hope we can get to them as soon as possible. But other than that, I think monitoring this week's numbers, have a pretty good feeling. They seem to be declining. Hope people aren't letting their guard down, but I think they're declining, and the more we get vaccinated, the better off we're going to be. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Bruce, obviously there's been a lot of demand for state resources ever since we hit this recent spike in cases. In looking back over the past week or so, is the state responsive to our request for help? Have they been pretty much delivering in terms of what we've needed in terms of testing and additional vaccine, do you think?
I would say to a point, the state's been helpful. I mean, they've helped with setting up testing clinics when we needed to. The last couple of weeks at the Melody Tent, they were able to come down. They asked us if we wanted to do more testing, but we'd already scheduled testing at our schools where we got all the schools done. So we didn't need any more assistance with that. The testing, the vaccination, I keep asking them for the vaccination everywhere I can. I do hear that they understand and they hear that I'm asking for it. So it's working its way up the chain. They do discuss it that they need to address the county, and I think I'm probably just one of many voices asking for more vaccine for the county that we're now seeing. So that's helpful.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and reaching out to the homebound, Tracy, yeah, that's a tough one. We're ready to go. We're up to about 170. A couple other smaller towns went forward, but you know, the smaller towns down Cape, if you only had 20 or 30 people that you had to reach out to, you know, that's pretty quick to get out there and do. But when you're doing, you know, 170, try to get out there, it's going to be more of a challenge. But I think with the Johnson & Johnson's going to really help us. And Diane at the Council on Aging has stayed in touch with those people, so they haven't felt left behind. And I think that's very important for the communications from Council on Aging.
Yeah, well, I think it's important that you hear the ongoing concern by the board regarding, you know, again, people, our elder population, and particularly the homebound. I think what we're starting to see now is this approach by which our fire departments are engaged with some of the community health centers, as well as Cape Cod Hospital. And clearly, this team approach in dealing with the homebound is beginning to pick up the pace. You can see that going on, which is huge. But as Mike said, we still have a ways to go, and that's concerning. So hopefully, these increases in supply that we're getting can be targeted, particularly to these folks that are still the most vulnerable. I think that's one of the things that many of us are worried about is we have this spike in activity, yet some of the most vulnerable people in our community have been left, I don't want to say ignored, but they've become sort of fallen behind. And that's a real worry here, particularly in our community where we have such a large percentage of people that are homebound and are very, very, very elderly. So, well, I have nothing else to add. I know yes, go ahead. Did you have one other point?
I'll just end with one last thing, because I came in at the public comment, and we'll look into that recycle bag. It just hadn't been a high priority that getting back out to the stores, but you know, people are starting to bring their recycle bags back to the stores, and we can reach out to a couple of the larger grocery stores on that.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Bruce. All right, you're excused. Well done.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a change of manager hearing with Seafood Sam's, and I'm gonna turn this portion of our meeting over to Mike Stone, the licensing chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is Natalie Mason with us?
Do we see Natalie? Yep. I think she's now been elevated.
Yes, she's here now. You want to unmute Natalie? Okay, Natalie, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm Mike Stone. I'm the licensing chairman. We have before us, how are you? Your change of manager application, and you want to tell us a little bit about your experience in the actually at that particular establishment?
Sure. It's my family business. I've been running that the front end since I was 19, 20 years old. We've only had beer and wine for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now, maybe. But yeah, I've been a part of the whole seasonal thing since the beginning of us having it there. So.
Okay, and you've met with Sergeant Hennessy, I see, to go over the Yarmouth rules and regulations.
Yes. Yep.
You have your tip certification.
Yes.
We received a quick email to our licensing department from Sergeant Hennessy, which was copied to me as well. And he says on March 15th, you met with him. You reviewed the Commonwealth of Mass and the Town of Yarmouth alcohol licensing regulations. You were well versed on the rules, and you should be considered an appropriate person to manage the establishment. You agree with that?
I do. Thank you, officer.
I thought you would. That's a pretty good and direct and affirmative endorsement.
Yes, he thought I was well prepared. I had all of the things he brought me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I already have all of that." So
yeah, we're just for your information, while you're here, we, through Phil Magnuson, who is a
Right.
retired police officer and attorney, we were having alcohol seminars every year. We didn't have one last year because of COVID.
Right.
So he's contacted me, and we're in the process of seeing if we can do something remotely or not.
Sure.
We're really not sure. We hate to miss 2 years in a row, because I think the update to managers and owners is very, very beneficial and avoids a lot of problems. So we'll see what happens. So do I have?
Mr. Chairman, seems Miss Mason's paperwork is in order. She's highly qualified and like to make a motion that we approve the change of manager.
Okay, do we
I'll
have a
second that. I'll second it.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Mark,
Aye.
Tracy,
Aye.
Ian.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So you're all set, Natalie. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. The next item on the agenda, the Historical Commission briefing, is being rescheduled. So we'll be bringing that up at some later date. The next item on the agenda is the town clerk on the ballot questions warrant. And I'm going to ask if Mary Maslowski can join us. Mary, are you here? Bingo. And we've got to get you unmuted. Mary? Very good. Okay, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Mary Maslowski, Town Clerk. Thank you for having me this evening. So we have a couple of items that are due. As you all know, the annual town election is scheduled for May 18th. We are at that time where it's timely for the board to vote for the election warrant. And as a part of that election warrant, there are 2 ballot questions, which are a result from last fall's special fall town meeting. And then we also included a space holder for you based on the potential override for the Dennis Yarmouth Regional School District budget. So the original one in your packet had an empty space with respect to the figures. There are 2 figures that had been suggested by Ed Centio, our finance director. So those numbers are available if you're interested. I will just point out that the way an override question gets on the ballot is by a vote of the Board of Selectmen, and that has to happen so that there's 35 days in advance of the town election. So the time is really now if that's a question that you folks would like to put on the ballot warrant. Otherwise, the ballot warrant is set up for all of the other necessary and items with respect to the races that will be on the ballot, plus the 2 questions that are already a part of the ballot because of last fall's town meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Tracy.
That brings up a great point. I was going to update you later on the school budget, and there's some changes in the school budget. Carol's getting clarification from legal, and there's been some effort to reduce some numbers and move things around. For instance, one of the things that she's trying to do is use her E&D fund to pay for some of the capital items, which would free up our capital funding, which could pay for operating. She's also looking at using E&D. She's almost at her 5% cap. They have a significant amount of money this year, which is good. But they're also using or looking to see the legalities of whether or not that can also be used to fund what's already been approved for us for the debt service for the new school, the interest just for 1 year, which would free up that funding. And I think that there's a legal issue on our end of that. Having said all that, in the last vote for the school budget, there was some miscommunication with the debt service being voted in that number. And the number they need is actually a little bit higher than what was voted the funding of it aside, but the budget number increased. So we've got a couple of things at play. That the board did not take any action last night. They will potentially at their next meeting. I think we have some legal questions to also try to get, but it leaves us, if we don't vote, if they can't, if the legalities are not there, and we can't get an agreement with Dennis, which is what that would take for the E&D to be used in that manner, from what I understood, there's no doubt we'll need an override. So, it's crunch time for us with the ballot. And if we don't vote to put it on, that leaves us in a very difficult position. If the vote goes through and it's on the ballot and we don't need it, that's one thing. So I think that it would be safe for us probably to move forward with putting it on the ballot just in case, because if we can't make those pieces all fit together, we're not going to be able to fund the budget. So it's going to leave us in a big deficit. So I know that you didn't want an update on the school right now, but I think it all plays into the ballot.
It does. Let me thank you, Tracy. I think that was very helpful to get that on the table. And while it's on the table, I'd like to at least get a report from Bob Lawton or our town administrator, if in terms of their recommendations, are you recommending that we have a third ballot question with the override?
Me?
No, I'm asking this of our administration, the two Bobs. I think we should start with Bob Lawton, who we can't hear for some reason. Bob, are you muted?
No.
Okay,
there
you
you
got
go.
to turn up the volume a little bit, Bob.
Okay. These new contraptions here. Ed Centio may want to chime in. I know that Bob W. and Bob L. both met with Ed Centio today at various times to talk about the options. And if it's okay with Bob Rittenauer, maybe Ed could chime in and just give his perspective on options.
Okay. Ed, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. The floor is yours. What are your recommendations?
I'd like to get a sense of where the board is, whether we should try to manage this situation without an override, or are you all leaning towards actually doing an override?
Well, I hate to play chicken and egg here, but I mean, a lot of our thinking is going to depend on what financial situation we're talking about. I listened very closely to what Tracy had to say. I too watched the school committee meeting last night, and there was clearly some optimism there, but nonetheless, these are questions that still have yet to be answered. So I think to some degree, I don't want to speak for the board. We can certainly go around and get some direct comment from the board, but I do think recommendations from our management team is important to have for us to consider.
Yeah. So I just want to relay what the finance committee has indicated. They would prefer not to do an override if we can make that work. Obviously, that puts us in a more difficult situation for our general fund to not have an override. But there are some issues with the school situation, and they're looking for us to help them out with it. So, one of your options is to, perhaps do a $400,000 override in order to try to deal with our budget situation. The other would be, since they have had an issue with both dealing with the capital with E&D, and also I believe they need to increase their budget just to deal with the short-term borrowing for the school, the exempt debt. So I think there's an opportunity probably to actually negotiate with the school to eliminate a potential for an override if they would actually utilize E&D to deal with the assessment in some way this year, and also in some way, again, a commitment for next year as well. so that we don't get a huge spike situation in the next year. So I think, it's either, perhaps a small override that the voters may actually be willing to pass. Again, with this economic situation, that's why, direction is being sought, given, where the economy is and a lot of unemployed folks and those types of situations, where we could, try to deal with the budget, perhaps at a $300,000 or $400,000, whatever you all think is appropriate for an override, and or, try to cover all of it and negotiate really hard with the school, given the fact that they do have $2.7 million in E&D that they could potentially put towards the budget this and next year to deal with their particular situation. So, and I think we have a little bit of, or a situation with the school where they actually need us to help them approve their higher budget level. So I think we can do some negotiation with them if we chose not to, put an override on the ballot, but we'd have to, get some commitment ASAP from the school that they'd help us out with their E&D situation.
Okay, Tracy, did you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I have some questions about that. So if we approve a debt service or debt for the school, excuse me, I'm sorry. Are we allowed to utilize that for operating funds?
No,
I'm having
the E&D or the exempt debt doesn't help us with operating. Neither does they're paying for the capital. What the exempt debt does, if they pay for it, that reduces the amount of taxes that our taxpayers would pay. So that's a benefit to our taxpayers that they might pay for the exempt debt, but that does not help us with the assessment that they provided to us.
So, but what does that mean for future years? I mean, I understand the E&D switch for capital. I just don't, I'm not sure how long-term that's going to help us. And in terms of my personal opinion, depending upon the number that they talked about last night, we were talking about over 900,000 instead of the 1.3. I just don't understand how we could absorb that.
Yeah, what the in anticipation of a significant budget issue, the FinCom 2 meetings ago passed and recommended some $600,000 in cuts or expense shifting to COVID, to existing articles, and the use of free cash. So we have the ability to, utilize those types of cuts or shifting in our budget to try to deal with some portion of the budget.
Again, though, what does that mean in years following?
Just, similar to when we had to take $1.5 million out of our budget for a very large school assessment, we have to build up our budget flexibility again. We have to kind of build up and skimp on spending and really try to build back where we are with the budget.
Yeah, I see Bob Rittenauer's got his hand up, as well as Bob Lawton. So I'm going to go to Bob Rittenauer first, and then Bob Lawton. Bob, the two Bobs.
Bob W.
Very quickly, Mr. Chairman, and I am very new to the situation. I want to thank the chairman also, who orchestrated an introductory meeting with the superintendent, Carol Woodbury, yesterday. And I was able to see some of her presentation on the budget and where things stand. And I also want to thank very much Ed Centio and Bob Lawton, who have been so generous with their time. And we spent a good deal of time discussing the status of this particular issue. And in a nutshell, I just want to kind of let you know what my concerns are coming in. And from one of the critical sheets that the school district prepared, that they had showed that, and I think that that the number that we're referring to is that the Yarmouth share of the school budget is coming in at approximately $979,000 above the 2.5% allotment that the town felt comfortable underneath the Prop 2.5 levy limit that can be provided. And I do want to acknowledge the school department's efforts to try to remediate that situation, that they are, sitting on an unusually large amount of E&D funds. And what they've agreed to do is they sought to take $859,000 worth of that and devote it towards, and I think it's a total of 1.3 or so for both Dennis and Yarmouth, and about $859,000 worth of that was going to be devoted towards reducing our costs. And as Ed mentions, that the concern that I have is that the key item, that using the E&D to pay for the short-term interest on an exempt debt, that does not create funds that can be used by the town for any other purpose. The only thing that we can possibly do is lower the tax bill for local taxpayers, which is a very positive piece. And it will lower that tax bill townwide by the $485,000. And so that's a significant step, and it's very much appreciated, but it does nothing to make up the 979. You could make the argument that the replacement of $373,000 in town free cash contributions to the capital projects, which include the new boilers, which include the digitized control system for their HVAC, that 373,000, if E&D is used, saves the town actual cash of that amount, because we had proposed to use the free cash. So the bottom line is, while the taxpayers get the benefit of the 485, if you take the 979 and you reduce that by the 373, it still leaves the town's general fund about $600,000 short. And I think what Mr. Centio is saying, that I understand completely, that if the town were to increase, some of the estimates for local receipts up to a level that we're really not comfortable doing, that, with the decline in local estimated receipts as a result of COVID, in order to make up that entire 600,000, it may push us to a level that strangles the general fund to the extent that it places us in a position next year with very little growth in the budget to require an override. What my feeling is that you may want to consider, if we know that the E&D funds will reduce the taxpayer burden by $485,000, I think Mr. Setio has provided two options. One option would be an override that would try to raise the full amount of 979, and a second option would only cover the difference between the shift in students and the budget, which is a lower amount of approximately 420,000. And if, in my view, if you want to play a safer bet to put yourself in a position that even if you decide not to raise the entire amount during FY22, it would give you a small amount of levy capacity to deal with this same issue next year, without raising the local estimated receipts to a level that may not be comfortable. It may be wise to go for the lower of the two options and see if there's an appetite on the ballot for the 420,000, which would still create, with the use of those E&D funds, approximately townwide $65,000 reduction for taxpayers. So in order to use those E&D funds to actually create new money, you would have to have the override and then cut the taxes by the 485, if that makes any sense. But overall, it would place you in a better position for next year and prevent you from doing something like pulling out all the stops to spend every dime possible to plug the hole this year.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Bob Lawton, Bob, did you want to add something to that?
Just a quick comment. I believe you should have the override question on, and I believe that.
Bob, we can't hear you.
That's unusual.
I know.
Is that better?
You're gonna have to still turn up the volume. Some folks at home aren't gonna be able to hear you.
Okay, well, it's up almost as high as it goes. Is that
Okay.
Is that
You
better?
have to talk louder.
I hope I don't have to talk into this.
There you go. That's helpful.
They gave me a new sound bar and everything.
That's
Oh well. Anyway, well, I'll talk like this.
This is
So,
good. That's helpful.
Not to prolong this, but I believe you should do an override because we don't know tonight what the school is going to do. I think the safe thing to do is to do the $420,000 number, fix that in there. And as I think people have said, if it isn't used, if the school magically comes up with some money, you don't use it, because you have to have two things to spend the money. You have to, one, the vote on a ballot, and the second is the appropriation at town meeting.
Right.
If you don't have one of those, you don't spend it. So it doesn't hurt anything, as Bob Rittenauer said, to have the capacity in future years. So I would recommend that you put the article on at the $420,000 level.
Okay, let me, Tracy, do you want to just hold your question for just a second? What I'd like to do is at least get questions in from Dan and Mike, and then I'll circle back to you for a follow-up. Okay, Dan, do you have any questions?
No, I think we have the budget presentation from the schools coming in a couple of weeks. It's a very fluid situation. It makes sense to put the ballot question on there to give us the flexibility. And then when we have more information, I think we'll be able to make a better decision.
Okay, thanks, Dan. How about you, Mike? Any questions, comments right now?
No, my only comment is to kind of echo what Bob Lawton said after Bob's detailed breakdown, Bob Wittenauer's detailed breakdown. And that is, if you don't need it, you just get the vote at town meeting not to use it, even though it passes at the ballot. So it's not a all-in commitment. Obviously, this board doesn't favor overrides. We don't have a tradition of favoring overrides, but circumstances across the board are not as they typically are for the town or the schools. I mean, these are tough economic times. And so, I mean, I don't know what the answer to this is. I would probably gonna be deferring to Ed and Bob Wittenauer and Bob Lawton on this one.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Tracy, back to you.
Yeah, I guess I'm just concerned with the number. And Mary, the timing for the actual number you need printed with that, what's the deadline on that?
It really should be today,
Yeah.
Tracy, because officially you're supposed to, once it's voted, we need to get the written amount, and we need to go out to press for the ballots. So,
Okay.
Unfortunately, the drop dead date really is tonight, unless you wanted to call us back.
Well, no, I think, personally, I think that we should go with a higher number. My concern is we're going to take 300,000 from capital. Okay. Next year, that 300,000 is gone from capital again, right? Am I wrong? So we need to make up for it somehow. We're going to have to, next year, we're going to be $300,000 short. Is it free cash, the capital items?
Yeah, the capital proposed to give to the schools was from free cash.
Okay,
So
what happens to?
This would be a situation where the schools would not be taking our free cash.
Understood. However, we'd have to utilize that funds for operating, which won't be there next year. So we're putting ourselves in more of a deficit by doing that in following years. The 400,000 this year, and then those funds that are no longer available in subsequent years. So I just feel like I completely appreciate what Carol tried to do. I really do, but I think that we're going to find ourselves short. And if we're going to go for it, we should go for the higher number, not knowing what's going to happen. I would go for the full number. And then if we don't need it and we can lower it on town meeting floor, then that would be something else. I mean, obviously it's dangerous because you have such a high number on a ballot, which could fail. But to not put that money in where it's only going to save us for 1 year, that money's in their budget plus the 2.5% in the following years. We're not doing ourselves any favors.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm going to just circle back to the two Bobs. Tracy's suggesting that we consider the an override with a higher number. What again would that number be? Just so that I'm clear.
It's, I think Ed had put in 900 and I think it's $977,000.
Okay.
The exact number is $977,736.
Okay.
Is what I have on one of the two warrants that I think were in the packet.
Okay, so what we're hearing tonight is we do need to act on that ballot question number 3. The two Bobs and Ed are recommending that we do have that ballot question. The question is, what's the number? And so we have two numbers in front of us. One is the 997,736, and then the other number that we have is a $420,000 number. And so I think that's where we're at. Have I missed something, Bob W. and Bob L? No?
I don't think so. It's really a policy decision on how far you want to go.
Right.
It's really deciding whether the voters would approve. Now, I suppose you look at the broadest picture. Let's say the no override is approved on the 18th.
Mhm.
Then we go to town meeting on the 22nd, and some number is voted. If there is the need to have another override, unfortunately, you'd be asked by staff to call a special election and have another election. I think, Mary, it would have to be by September.
I believe September 15th, I believe, is the cutoff for override questions. So
there's the guess. I guess.
Right.
Do you want the 977 or do you want the 420, which according to the finance director is doable? And I think Bob Rittenauer had done the analysis for half a day today, and I think he was comfortable with that. But to be absolutely safe, you'd go with the 977 and see if the voters would approve it.
Right. But what I'm hearing is you're both, the two Bobs are recommending the 420 number, correct?
As a minimum, I think, and Bob
Okay.
can speak for himself.
Yeah, Bob.
And I would say that Tracy's point is very well taken. And from my understanding of the numbers, I feel as if the goal is to simply make it so that we can balance the budget for fiscal year 22 with the 420, in all likelihood, we can accomplish that. And what the higher number would give you is, in all likelihood, the ability to do that next year as well. And so the 420, it won't leave you in as bad a position as if you had nothing, but the higher number, I think, solves the problem potentially for another year out. And I think that was her key point, was that it's a little more farsighted, and there's wisdom there.
Okay, thank you. I know Ed Centio had his hand raised a moment ago. Ed, are you still want to chime in at this point?
I just want to add some perspective. I shared with the Bobs our override history since
Right.
1990, and particularly during a a downtime, and we don't pass a lot of overrides. I think there are 3 that are over $1 million or near $1 million. And one of them was as a result of exempt debt dropping off, and we replaced it with a permanent override. So, you know, a large number, particularly in this economic situation, may be a difficult situation at the ballot. That's the only thing I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you, Ed. I'm going to go back to the board members again one more time to see if they have any more comments or questions. I think at this point, I think those are our options unless you have some other ideas. So Mike, is there any more questions or comments?
No, I just think I'd be, and I think Ed's suggesting this, I'd be leery of the larger number and for its failure at the ballot, really. I don't think the voters are going to approve close to $1 million override. I don't believe they will.
Dan, do you want to comment? I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have
No,
any?
that's okay. No, that's fine.
All right, thank you. Dan?
I'd agree. It's a bit of a Hobson's choice here. Tracy's point is valid. We might be in this situation again next year. But it has been a tremendously difficult year, and we need an override to pass to make sure that we're really not in trouble.
Right.
So I think I'd go with the lower number, 420 or the 489, to have the best success at the ballot at the election.
Was that a question, Dan? Is it? I think the number is 420, right?
I heard a number earlier, 489 is.
Bob W, can you just confirm that? What's the number? I want to make sure we have the correct number. 420. Was there something else?
It's 420, and it is based on a calculation that Ed did that has some history with the board, where he calculates the components of the increase in the school budget, which in this case is I think about a 2.7% increase. And then there's also a shift in the students among Dennis and Yarmouth. And out of the 979,000, the cost of the shift, he calculated out as 559,897. And so the difference between that shift and the amount of the total over Prop 2.5 is 420,034.
I guess one question I would have is the 420 dependent on Dennis or the school system making adjustments or further action at this point, or is that going to solve our issue? Does Dennis have to make any kind of adjustment or agree to anything?
Yeah. Who would like to answer that question?
I think Ed could answer it, but
Ed,
I don't believe so.
Okay.
They are underneath their 2.5% already.
Dennis is.
Thanks, Tracy. Ed, do you have anything to add to that?
Just, I think their budget's at 2.72% because of the OPEB that they're funding, or 2.5% if they're not funding their OPEB. And yes, they've decreased their budget by $400,000. They decreased their assessment by $400,000. So yes, that override would take care of that situation.
Okay. So let me make sure I understand. So we have one number 977,736, and then we have another one 420,036 or 026?
034.
034.
I think.
Can I
Tracy
just
Coe's
ask
got
another question?
Tracy, go ahead.
Well, Ed, in your presentation, when you talked about the $400,000 override, you talked about the finance committee meeting, making expense line item cuts. So what does this 400,000 really mean to us to get there? What are we cutting?
So what we've done is the additional funding for IT would be funded out of free cash. The funding for the human services would be funded out of COVID money. So we're really not cutting anything. We're just shifting things to more appropriate or better funding sources for this fiscal year.
So for one fiscal year, but what does it mean in subsequent fiscal years? Is there anything in there that's a reoccurring expense?
For S&P, no, but yes, the IT money would be
And
recurring.
what's the dollar on that?
That's $274,000. I mean, Tracy, I agree. If we could pass almost $1 million override, that puts the town in the best fiscal position.
Well,
If we feel we could get that passed, that would be tremendous.
It's not our budget to pass, first of all. I mean, the school committee has to do their part. It's their budget. You know, this increase to us is with absolutely no additional services. Nothing's been added to their budget. So cutting town services again, or not making progress. There's a lot of federal money. There's a lot of E&D money. I'm not sure how it can work, but I'm just very uncomfortable with the lower number. And I think that if we go for the higher number and it doesn't pass, we have another opportunity to go for something lesser if we need to. But I mean, it sounds like the board's comfortable with 420, but we're going to be back at another override next year. There's no way around it. So I understand, but at least we should try. And if we can't get it, we have a second opportunity potentially. But I definitely think if we don't do it this year, we're definitely going to need one this year and next year, just right off the bat. So.
Okay. Anybody else on the board wish to be?
Could I ask a question and ask?
Go right ahead.
What does that look like if we try for the higher number and it doesn't pass? How would that scenario play out in terms of asking for the lower number after that?
I'll give a shot at it. What happens is that once town meeting on the 22nd is completed, the final calculations would be made and we would know exactly what our spread is, what the difference is between how much we're over 2.5 and what the schools and the other departments have been allotted. Then we'd have that number, we'd present to you a request for a special election for that exact number. And then, of course, I suppose if you want to go the whole way, if that override also does not pass, then the school has an option to lower their budget or keep it the way it is, and then we go to a district meeting. So, hate to say it, but
yeah, I understand.
But that's the ultimate on that.
One other thing I think we need to be cognizant about is they're working on a very preliminary state budget as well. You know, they got the governor's budget. It hasn't went through their renditions yet. So potentially it won't change their budget number, but it could help them if they had to make some changes if the override failed the first time. And they went back to the drawing board at that time, they'd have a lot clearer picture of their revenues.
Well, the reality is we've got to do something tonight, right? So, I mean, that's where we're at. I think at this point, we're comfortable on all the ballot questions with the exception of number 3. So is there a motion to approve the annual election warrant as submitted to the board with a dollar figure on question number 3? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'd make that motion.
So you're going to make a motion. What's your dollar figure for question number 3?
I believe my motion would be to put it on for $997, $736?
I think it was 977.
977, 736, and it would be contingent on a Proposition 2.5 override. That's the ballot question. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a warrant question. Okay.
Right. This is just the ballot.
Okay.
Question. Right. So you would fill it in with that number, 977,736. Do I have a second on that emotion?
Yep.
So Dan, you second that?
Yep.
Any more discussion on the motion which has been seconded? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Mike Stone,
No.
Tracy Post,
Aye.
Dan Horgan,
Aye.
chair votes no. So it has not approved. So do I have another motion for the lower number?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, that's to approve the warrant as presented to the board with ballot question number 3 plugged in at 420,034. I'll second that motion. Any more discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor, roll call vote. Mike Stone,
Aye.
Tracy Post,
Aye.
Dan Horgan,
Aye.
the chair votes aye. It carries. Before we move from this agenda item, Bob, is there any other business related to the warrant, either that you have or Mary has?
Yes, I think that Mary had asked us if you would do a confirming vote on this annual town meeting to be May 22nd and a time. And I think in the past, when you've done a Saturday meeting, it's been 9 o'clock, if that's acceptable. So the vote would be to formally, and I think this is right, Mary, call the annual town meeting for the town of Yarmouth for Saturday, May 22nd at 9 a.m.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Mike Stone,
Aye.
Tracy Post,
Aye.
Dan Horgan,
Aye.
chair votes aye. It carries. All right, does that conclude our business, Mary?
That's all I needed from you folks this evening. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you for being here tonight and all your help.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the planning board reauthorizing the growth incentive zone. And let's bring up our town planner and others. We have Joanne Crowley. And we also have, I think, Kathy Williams is somewhere. Okay. Hey, Kathy, we see you.
Hi, hi. I believe Joanne Crowley, who's the chair of the planning board, there she
Yes,
is.
sorry, I got disconnected there.
Is there anybody else from your group that's coming before us tonight? Are you two the ones performing?
I believe we are the two for
Great.
this
Oh, well.
evening, Mr. Chairman, unless Kyle has others that have signed in.
I don't see anybody else.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Selectmen, and welcome, Mr. Rittenhour. Nice to see you. We're looking forward to having a meeting with you at some point. There will be a letter on your desk soon. My name is Joanne Crowley. I'm chair of the Yarmouth Planning Board, and on the agenda for you this evening is a request by our board to seek approval for a 10-year extension of the Yarmouth Growth Incentive Zone from the Cape Cod Commission. Thank you, Kyle. The Yarmouth Growth Incentive Zone was originally approved in 2007 for a period of 10 years, and we extended that to October 22nd, 2021, which of course is this year, and we are seeking an extension of 10 years on this growth incentive zone. The primary benefit of this GIZ, as it's known, is the relief that it provides to properties in the zone. There are 35 properties in the zone from the burden of certain thresholds that would otherwise trigger a DRI review by the Cape Cod Commission, which, as anyone knows who's tried to survive one of those, it's a very difficult and onerous process, well designed for large projects, but this provides significant relief of the thresholds that would trigger a DRI, and we think it's very beneficial. During this time that we've had the GIZ, We've continued to make progress encouraging the development of these 35 applicable Route 28 motel properties that are highlighted here in yellow on the map. We've provided some regulatory and financial incentives and have seen some successful redevelopment initiatives. And with this in place, we've seen it, and it's visible, and you're familiar with the most obvious properties, the Hampton Inn, Yarmouth Commons, and now the affordable housing that's being developed at the old Yarmouth Gardens Motor Lodge, which is currently a construction zone. So we're looking forward to that opening. The planning board believes that this extension of the term of the growth incentive zone will continue to be attractive and beneficial to developers who are interested in investing in our community. To protect the opportunities provided by the GIZ, the planning board approved a motion at our March 3rd, 2021 meeting to seek this 10-year extension. And we now respectfully request your approval and for you to make a similar vote to allow for the extension request to be submitted to the Cape Cod Commission. For this extension, all other aspects of the original GIZ are in place. This is the only adjustment to the original ordinance. Kathy and I are here to answer any questions you might have, but we would appreciate your support in making this request to the Cape Cod Commission.
Very good. Thank you.
Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the request.
Do I have a second?
Mr. Horgan, you're muted.
Dan, is that a second? You can just raise.
Yes, sorry. Yes, second.
All right. So I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I have just one question about, 10 years. I remember when we put this in, one of the things for the Cape Cod Commission for their allowance of this is to have a net neutral in terms of septic flow. So perhaps we won't need it for the whole 10 years if we are able to get Route 28. If we're able to get Route 28 sewered, we're going to see a lot more growth than the GIZ is going to be able to potentially offer. But I think in the meantime, it's a completely a great program to be able to continue. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, I'm going to put it to a vote. Roll call. Mike Stone.
Aye.
Tracy Post.
Aye.
Dan Horgan.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night.
You too. All right, the next item on our agenda is an update from the police chief and a discussion on body cameras for Yarmouth police officers. So let's see if we can get.
Well, that's in the news. Body cams. Where have I seen that before?
There you go.
It's all over that trial. I mean, there's a billion.
Exactly. Now let's see in terms of our attendees. Do we have the chief here?
I haven't seen him yet.
No. Ed, don't go away. Very good. I'm sorry, I'm getting some paperwork done here with our finance director. Okay, then what I'd like to do is, obviously they were expecting this to come up later on the agenda. What I'd like to do, if it's okay with the board, is just table this for the time being and then maybe move on to the next item on the agenda, which is board and committee actions. Is that acceptable to everyone?
It's fine.
Okay. So let's do this. We have an upcoming agenda review. And what I'd like to do is to just go over with the administrator, the two Bobs, the agenda for the upcoming meeting on April 13th. We'll have the budget presentation from the schools. I guess one of the questions on my mind, gentlemen, is to what degree is this question regarding the school budget likely to be answered, is that's something that might drag on even longer. Does anybody have a comment on that? And I'll include that question to you, Tracy. Based on at least the most recent discussions, do we think we'll have some better clarity by the budget presentation on the 13th?
Well, they meet on Monday, so, and we meet Tuesday, so perhaps we will. Yeah. I mean, if not, it wouldn't make sense that we have them at that point in time. But I mean, we've done what we had to do in advance of it, so it's kind of a moot point. Usually we make our decisions based off of that, and
Right.
we're a little bit turned upside down right now.
No, I understand. So Bob, do you still recommend that we keep that item on the agenda for next month, next Tuesday?
I would. I think at least you'd get some presentation on some of the details of what's in the budget. And then the financing certainly is going to be an ongoing discussion even up to the 22nd of May.
Right. Okay. And then we have,
Bob has a comment too.
I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead.
No, I just said, I agree very, very much so. And I think we could all use the additional communication so everyone's on the same page.
Okay, that's good. Just checking. We have an entertainment license hearing. And then on the Cape Cod Commission update, what I would recommend on the Cape Cod Commission update is if our the administrator's office can perhaps identify issues or things that may have come up or may be of interest to our departments or department heads, so that if, I mean, it's always helpful for us to have a discussion with the Cape Cod Commission director. Oftentimes it's a one-way dialogue though. And quite frankly, you know, I'm not sure at the end of the day, you know, if we get much from the commission. And I mean, it's good to be aware of what they're doing and what they're working on, but I'm not aware of any ongoing projects or activities involving the town of Yarmouth and the commission. So I think it would be helpful to either have a briefing or some background information on things that might be ongoing with the town and the commission. Bob?
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
We had taken it off.
Yeah.
It's not on there for now because the
I'm
last
sorry.
meeting we had talked about having them come in June along with the Cape Light Compact
But
to do an evening with them.
Yeah. What
So-
I have is, I've got the wrong, sorry about that. I apologize.
Okay.
So we
We
have,
do have-
we have
do
the
have Eversource.
The Eversource spraying issue. It's the same, it would be the same thing, is to make sure that we're at least briefed on what the other departments are saying. I think there's a letter that came in from the Conservation Commission. I think there was a letter from the Board of Health.
Yes.
And I think we had at least generally talked about possibly having our own comment going in.
Yes, and we did find the last comments you made, and those will be included in the packet for the 13th, if that's acceptable.
That would, I think that would be great. Did the other board members feel the same way? Right, so as a board, we could sort of reaffirm the statement that we had maybe issued last year, and
If you
the
wish
last
to,
time.
sure.
Yeah, if we wish to. Okay, that's the 13th. Are there any other points that you want to bring up at all, gentlemen, with respect to upcoming agenda items for the 20th or the 27th?
The only other item we may have on the 27th and or the 4th is there is a potential for a liquor hearing with the Old Yarmouth Inn. They are looking at a change in premises. It's minor. They're putting in a movable structure so they can better serve their outside dining, but they do need to have a hearing. They're already working with the building commissioner and the health department to make that happen. So it'll be one of those 2 dates. We did not add it because we don't have all of the paperwork. On the 20th, I'm hopeful to be able to do a brief update on the drive-in site, the progress we've made in trying to get a package put together so that there could be some proposals submitted for 2, 3, 4 day possibly events. We'll just put it out there and see what people would like to do, if anything. So we're hopeful that'll be on the 20th. And we did talk about, again, having a meeting on May 4 and May 11th with the 18th, because your policy has been if there's an election, you do not meet.
Right.
Possibly could, but you may not want to. And then the 22nd is town meeting. Bob Rittenauer and I talked about this today, and I think he's in agreement, at least for now. He'll most likely be making some changes as new items come up, but
Okay. I think one of the agenda items that I just wanted to flag, and this is something that was brought up and discussed at a select board meeting back, I think in January. It might, or maybe in the fall. And this was an agenda item dealing with the solar project behind Workshop Road. The board was presented a plan, or at least there was a discussion about a proposal there, which I know I and maybe others raised some interest, expressed some interest in seeing a site plan further delineated, because there was what appeared to be a substantial amount of land clearing in that area. And what I'm nervous about is, I know there was an RFP. I know this project has sort of been moving along, but I don't think we have any real sense of what it's going to look like. And I do think, at least what I was expressing, as I was hoping that the board would have an opportunity to provide additional input on that site plan before any construction starts or any permitting process begins.
I think Bob Rittenauer talked about that today with me, and I know, and Bob, you may want to talk, Bob has a plan in his mind, meeting with Ed Centio to try to develop that for an upcoming meeting.
Okay.
Bob can speak to that if you'd like.
And no, I would just say correct. I saw the email, and in one of our briefings that we accomplished in the office, what we talked about doing is getting a slightly more refined site plan to present to the Board of Selectmen for review. And then I think we'll get some direction from there. And in the meantime, the project won't be moving forward. So we'll look forward to that, and we'll get that on an upcoming agenda.
Okay, that's great. Another potential agenda item that I think may relate to the town administrator's contract, and that is agreed upon goals, and having some discussion with the board on agreed upon goals with the town administrator. And we may want, I'm not suggesting tonight we sort of sort this out in terms of how we get there, but I just did want to flag it so that we can address that matter relatively quickly, and have maybe a set of proposed goals in front of us. And I don't know if board members feel that we should be compelled to identify goals on our end first.
My only comment would be the Invisio program would be a good place to start. Those are basically our goals in a online version that's workable. That's what we were trying to get towards, right? And in the meantime, we were working on visioning. So.
Any comments, Mike or Dan? I'll start. Mike, do you have anything you wanted to add to the goal setting?
I think Tracy's suggestion is a very good one, and I think also to start with last year's goals. I think we always get really bogged down in a lot of minutia with goals, right. And I think you're suggesting this, Mr. Chairman. They seem to take a lot longer than they should. We generally end up adopting, certain core goals, and then make some modifications with a few other goals, and maybe delete one or two. But they don't generally change dramatically. And I think with Tracy's suggestion to take a look at Invisio, take a look at last year's goals, read them over, see what you think, what's good, what should stay, what shouldn't. I think we could probably expedite this process substantially over where we were the last few years.
I agree. Thank you, Mike. Dan, any comments, thoughts?
Just two. I wasn't part of the process last year, so if I could ask one of the Bobs if they could send out a copy of the goals that were adopted for last year. And just a question, in terms of timing, we've got an election coming up with 2 potential seats possibly changing. So does it make more sense to put the timing after the election?
I think that's a good point. What I wanted to do is I didn't want to lose sight of it because there's a milestone in the agreement with the administrator. And I think what we need to do is make sure what we do is at least follow the spirit and the letter of that agreement. I would recommend that we assign the charge for the first draft to the administrator and then at least see if there's some way there could be some flexibility there. So we come upon that and deal with that after the election when we do the reorganization of the board. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Sounds
I
good.
think, Mr. Chairman, in fairness to our new town administrator, he has to really have a good sense of where we are as a board. And I think to evaluate his performance, it's only fair that there be a measuring rod, if you will,
right?
That people on both sides are aware of and comfortable that it reflects the mission of the board and the performance standards for the town administrator.
No, I would agree. Are you volunteering to work on helping shape that, Mr. Stone?
I have always, when it comes to town administrators, particularly with the talent we have, I've always been excited about working in that domain.
Okay, so we can.
I think.
Go ahead, Tracy.
No, to Dan Horgan's point, we've always done it after the election. I think it's only fair that we wait until the board is full with members that are going to participate in the year and in his evaluation that have a say in that. Otherwise,
I'm not
sure.
dismissing that. No, I think that's a legitimate point. I acknowledge that.
Yeah, but I think I agree with Tracy on that as well, but I think we can take some preliminary steps, just so that when we do have finalization of the board, we're ready to jump right into the meat of it rather than,
Yeah, I don't
for
recall
example, if you want the town administrator to do a draft, he certainly can do that and it'll be ready to go when we have a full board as to what, where he thinks we should start.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And if you volunteered to be a liaison to at least help in shaping that first draft, that would be terrific.
Sure.
Okay, that's all. Yeah, what I didn't come to tonight prepared to discuss, or at least I was not aware of whatever deadlines we have in the contract with the town administrator. I don't have that information in front of me. I just know that we obligated ourselves to do that soon. And
we usually do the evaluation, well, in the past, around the anniversary date, which for the last town administrator was in January. So I'm assuming this evaluation will probably be sometime late March, April, somewhere around there.
Very good. Okay, I think that's clear. Any other discussion on any other upcoming agenda items? No? Okay, then let's.
Chairman, Chief Frederickson is here, if you're ready for him.
So let's sort of suspend our business at this point and then bring that item off the table and have the discussion and the update on the body cameras. So we have Chief Frederickson and we have, I believe the Deputy Chief is here as well. Good evening, Chief. I think, okay, there he is, Kevin Lemon. Good evening, Chief. The floor is yours.
Good evening and welcome, Town Administrator Brittenell. First time we've met. Haven't even really spoken yet. So welcome. Tonight, I asked for some time to bring to you the request for body-worn cameras. It's been a discussed item across the state and the country, and it really got expedited with the police reform bill that was passed. It's now the police reform law. So there are a lot of different pieces to it. But the bottom line is that body cameras are a key element that our officers should have as they go out there and do the job that they do. It can do a lot of different things for the credibility and accountability of our officers, which is paramount to having a strong community. We've discussed this with our command staff. Excuse me. You go to the next slide. I'm not sure who's running it. Yeah, we have discussed this with our command staff, and we all agree that this is something that we should have, and we really should have it right now. We worked hard with our unions. Recently, we settled the contracts, which paved the way to allow them to be implemented. And there's one important key fact that has to be understood in today's environment, is that our officers who are out there doing the jobs that they do are often videotaped, and only pieces of what they do are on record. And we're the last ones to have any type of evidence to support our officers' actions or find out what actually took place from the officer's point of view. So body cams really goes a long way to correcting that. You can go to the next slide, please. And some of the reasons why we believe it's a top priority to get body cameras is that our community already assumes that we have them. They're across the country. They're everywhere. Matter of fact, we just interviewed an applicant yesterday who is from Virginia, and most of the interview was about the body cameras that they use from Charlottesville, and was involved in that riot last year. He was there, and he can't imagine not having a body camera and going out the road right now. They are the best tool for implementing police reform. Many of the things in the law that was passed could have been averted by just merely having everybody having body cams, because everything is out there. It will do a lot of different things. They're widely accepted and used in many parts of the country. The Massachusetts State Police, the Mashpee Police, and other Massachusetts police departments already implemented it. Matter of fact, I talked to a lieutenant colonel of the state police today. We had a long conversation. They are in use now. They just started implementing them about a month ago, and they're not cheap. The state police spent $21 million to implement the systems, but this system also included in-car video as well, which is another component. We initially proposed just doing body cams because of the cost to do everything. Would probably not fit into the budget at this time, but it certainly is somewhere where we should be moving towards. Next slide, please. All right. So we asked, what are the benefits of body cams? Some of it I've already spoke with. I'll run through them again so we can have a better understanding of the completeness of what we're talking about. They help improve high quality public service of our Yarmouth officers. It's something we always strive to do, but this is another key that will add trust and legitimacy to our department and our members. It promotes a sense of procedural justice, so we can actually see what is taking place, and not just in written reports or complaints from citizens who might say otherwise. They improve the conduct of community members who are recorded. Sometimes their behavior is different when they're also being recorded as well. They improve evidence collection and sharing capabilities. And it's not just with the officer's action. There are parts of this where the public can, if we're at a crime scene, the video can be sent to the back office support of what we have, and have their evidence footage entered into evidence room, basically, and it's all on the cloud. So it's a really good advantage to have that we don't have right now. It enhances transparency. It's going to be video. We've seen enough video of different incidents across the country. Some of them aren't pretty, but most of them you don't hear about, or you don't hear about them because the officers did the right thing. To clear documentation of the police and citizen encounters that we take place every day. We can see what takes place. It protects the officers from frivolous complaints, which sometimes come through. Go to the next slide, please. We talked about building that trust and legitimacy. That is a very important piece. And in the 21st century policing, that is one of the key components of how we should be acting. Strengthens officers' performance, improves officer accountability, helps us investigate and resolve complaints and officer-involved incidents. And it's also a useful training and supervisory tool. Next slide, please. And where are we at? Phase one is getting the union agreements. The supervisor had agreed to it some time ago. In the recent patrol officers contract, they agreed to it as well. So with the table is set for implementation. We've now entered into policy development. Deputy Chief Lennon is putting together a team of union members and administrative staff to develop our policy based on the best practices. We've done a cost analysis of a couple of the different vendors that are out there right now in this packet. We also have some other information. It's like everything else, the more you dig into it, the more information that is out there. And then phase four would be to secure the funding, which is the main reason why we're here tonight, is how we're going to do this. We need to get this done. Next slide, please. Some of the current concerns about implementing body cameras, the FOIA requests, they can be consuming, but with the system that we look at with Axon, there's a redaction component to it. Everything is stored in the cloud. The access to it and the time to develop the footage that needs to get put out is much streamlined. We're pretty excited about the way that works. The other systems have similar processes, but Axon seems to be have a really good handle on how that works. There are concerns about public privacy rights. You know, if people are being videotaped in a body cam, if we're in someone's personal space in an environment that may not necessarily be evidence, and so we have to be cognizant of how to get around that, so we're not putting the public in any type of jeopardy that they don't need to be in. And also concerned with the officers' privacy rights as well, for the same issues. And one of the big things comes back to a lot of how we work in government is costs. How do we sustain the implementation and the recurring costs of our body cams? Next slide, please. All right, Deputy Chief Lennon, if you want to run over the cost, Deputy Chief Lennon did a lot of the research on the cost, and we can add to it after he's done. Deputy?
Okay, so when, as the chief said, we looked at the Axon product, and the camera is $699 per camera. And the program that we're looking at, it's a 5-year program. So with the benefit of that is everything's under warranty for 5 years. So as we move through the years, at year 2.5, if Axon comes up with a new camera, we automatically get that for free, and any other equipment upgrades that go with it. The annual subscription fee, that's where the major cost comes in. Excuse me. So to get the most benefit out of the product that we're looking at, our annual subscription fee would be $2,099 and $28 per unit. So that's per camera. But what that allows us is the unlimited storage capabilities of the videos, the redaction component that the chief was talking about. So for every, what Axon states is that for every hour of video without the redaction component built in, it takes about 7 man-hours to redact the video. So you would take out faces, license plates, and other things like that. So by going with the Unlimited Plus plan at the 2028 per year, we would get that redaction component. We would get if you're looking down the list, it's a signal sidearm. So what that does is if the body camera is not activated when an officer gets out of their cruiser and they're engaging with somebody and they draw their firearm, it sends out a Bluetooth signal and it automatically activates that body camera and any body camera that's within about 150 feet of it. The same thing with a taser battery that we would put in. Right now, our taser batteries do not talk to any other pieces of equipment, but we would get the taser battery with the same thing. And if an officer gets out and gets involved with somebody and they forget to turn the camera on, when they activate their taser, it would send out a Bluetooth signal and would automatically activate all the body cameras that are within the area. And then, looking down, it's gives us a records management component that allows us to store data up in the cloud. The chief was talking about the citizens being able to upload videos. So what we would do is we would pull an offense number. An officer could give it to that citizen, send them a link, and the citizen could upload, a business owner or citizen could upload any still videos or any streaming video from their system, and that would be attached to the case that would go over to the district attorney's office. So in looking at it, it does look like a sizable number, but that is the best. That's the best value that we think for getting the tasers and what to work with. And then if you're looking at that slide on the right-hand side, it shows we have to buy docking stations because the tasers, the batteries only last 12 hours. So they would have to be placed in a docking station in the station. So those docking stations are almost $1,500 a piece. We would buy a couple single docking stations for the officers that do not attend roll call, like our K9 officer and our PAC officers. They would be assigned a camera. They would have a docking station at home. And then the Axon, the signal, the automatic activation, that's for the holster. The SPPM battery, that's for the taser. And then I'm sorry, the signal sidearm down at the bottom, the 249, that's for the holster. The one above that, that's if we had an in-car video system. When you activated that would actually turn on the body camera as well. So we could scratch that 279 where it says that under sensor. But the chief and I spoke. We think that we could get away with approximately 20 cameras to start, and that would allow us to field our officers out on patrol where we feel it's needed most, and then we would have spares for other officers to take if needed. We would like to go all in and get a body camera for every single officer. That would be 61 from the chief down, and then everybody would have a body camera assigned to them. It would cut down on some administrative work that we would need to do, swapping cameras out and changing names in them to make sure that the officer that's wearing the camera is the one that's getting time stamped on the footage. But to start out, the chief and I had spoken, and we believe that about 20 would work out for us. We had sent out the cost proposal that Axon had sent to us, and we know that we're limited to a 3-year contract. If we wanted to go a 5-year contract, we would have to go before the town meeting and get a vote so we could stretch the payments out over 5 years. But if we left it at 3 years, I believe the cost is about $175,000 for the first year, and then $95,000 for years 2 and 3 to carry us through. But that would be a 5-year contract. Chief, anything else?
There's a couple other components in the reform law. There was a committee set up about body cams. They're supposed to be meeting by sometime this month with the plan of them getting to July 1st of 22 to adopt regulations. In the law itself, there are some specifications already written in there, but they need to adopt a full-fledged plan by July 1st of 22. That does not mean that we should wait until July 1st, 22. It's more about the policy procedures. When we develop a policy and procedure, we will use the best practices, just as similar to like the state police just did and all the other departments are doing. But then that is subject to change by law in the way we handle it. But my guess is that with the best practices out there, whatever they come up with is going to be right along lines with that. So that is coming. There is potential for some grant money. Executive Office of Public Safety is considering that. But generally, the grant money is usually for the equipment part, not the service fees, annual fees. So, but we would actively pursue anything that comes down the road. Additionally, Executive Office of Public Safety is also working on a statewide RFP for all the different vendors that can submit a proposal for the types of body cams, cruiser cams that are out there. That would save us a little bit of work because right now they're not on the state bid. We'd have to do them individually. So you know, there's enough foundation out there from the other departments that have already purchased them that we know the direction to go, but it is a little bit of work. But the most important thing, and I can't stress enough, that we really should do whatever we can to get this enacted. We owe it to our officers to do this, to give them the tools that they need. It's not unlike someone from Eversource that's got to go up on a pole and work on wires, and the equipment is there that they need, and they can't send them up there without it. And I think we're at that point now where this is a mandatory thing. We should be doing everything we can to find the funding for it. I know the difficult time we're in right now, but there are probably some options. I have my own, but it's your business to figure that out. But I don't know, I can't speak enough because these officers are my kids. And if that's my son or daughter out there, I want them to have this. They need it. They don't, they are professional, and we're not afraid to show the professional work of what they're doing.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I'd like to ask the two Bobs and Ed, I'd like to think that there's been at least some thinking about the financing of this. Before I go to the board for questions, did either one of you want to offer some comments regarding thoughts in terms of how to finance this, or if we don't have a plan, at least acknowledge that? Go ahead, Bob.
I think they fixed my sound. So maybe it's better. I hope. Ed Centio has talked with the chief and the deputy, I believe, about some funding options, and I think the Capital Budget Committee is listening in on the conversation tonight, so they can get a heads up. So if it's okay, maybe Ed could talk a little bit about his plan that he's talked to them about on funding these items.
That would be great, Ed. Can you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. What the chief and deputy have indicated, this is now their #1 priority for funding. So utilizing that information, I think going back to the Capital Budget Committee, and they can take they can revisit their list of what they are proposing from the free cash to fund capital and see where they might position this. Talk to Pat Armstrong about scheduling the chief and deputy to go before the Capital Budget Committee, and then the Capital Budget Committee can weigh in. I think some of their concerns of the unions not having previously accepted it, and the police department working on the process and procedures for this were satisfied or are being satisfied. That was a holdup in the past for funding. But I think it's a matter of, okay, let's look at the current funding priorities and you know, where would we rank this? And the Capital Budget Committee has done a great job ranking the capital ask and in order of 1 through 18, so they could schedule this. And they placed a high priority for public safety types of items in their previous look at capital items. So I think that would be the next step. And then there would be a recommendation back to you for the free cash list for capital. And then we can go from there.
Okay. Thank you, Ed. I'm going to go around to the board members for comments and questions. I'm going to start with Mike Stone. Mike?
Thank you. I think, Chief, in addition to protecting officers, the body cam protects everybody in an encounter. And I'm imagining if I were in, not that I would be, but if I was ever involved in such an encounter like that, it wouldn't be my word as to what happened or didn't happen, especially if we had a complete video. The key, you're right, that bystanders have a tendency today to film encounters with police. And just by nature of the equipment they work with, they're never complete videos. They're just going to be selected portions of what happened. But videos are very important in litigation. You know, people have a tendency to say, I believe this because I just saw a video about it. And the video might just show a certain vantage point and not, as you said, be a complete record of what happened. So I do think it serves the broader community as well as the police. If you follow the trial that's going out currently out in Minnesota, there are videos like you've never seen before that have been introduced into evidence. Body cams, stationary videos from particular locations, citizens videos. And it's, from what I've seen of that case, the key to all this seems to be the activation of the camera. That's key. That officer, once they get out of that car, bam, they got to, they got to hit the camera to get the signal. So otherwise they don't have the protection. But it's the way things are trending, certainly. And I think it's inevitable that you're going to see just about all departments on some schedule be phasing into or going complete with body cam equipment. The other thing that's interesting about that case, there's a lot of information on policies and procedures. They've had police testify, they've had sergeants, they've had lieutenants, they had the chief. They brought in an expert that had a PhD on the use of deadly force. It's incredible. So it's very instructive. It's very educational in terms of the equipment, the use of the equipment, the policies, the strength of the policies, where the policies need to be further developed because they fall short of certain situations. So my question that I think, to me, it just boils down to a question of money. It's a finance question. I don't doubt for a moment that it's really there's a pressing need, and that's where policing is going, I think, nationwide right now. And in terms of the policies and procedures, can you tell me what the scope is? How, just in a general sense, talk about what kind of topics the policies are going to cover?
Deputy, you want to take a stab at that? I have sent him all the different policies he's seen.
Yeah. I'm talking just about general scope. For example, they talk about, use of force. Do they talk about de-escalation? What kinds of issues are these policies going to be addressing?
Well, this policy is specific to the use of the body cam, when it's turned on, when it's activated, when you can't delete anything, how you write reports, what type of incidents you should use it on. You know, there are some of the systems that have the cruiser cameras as well. The nice feature about that is when you put the lights on, it activates the camera. So that technology is there. That's really good.
Okay. You're talking more about the integrity of the video system in terms of those policies.
Yes, the policy and procedures as far as use of force and all of those types of items, those already exist.
Okay.
They already exist. This is just the use of the body cam. There's a lot of different things that go along with it. And it's amazing, as you know, in law, that one thing seems so simple, but it is so in-depth and complicated. And the things such as body cam. I mean, it talks about storage. How long do we keep video? What can we give out? What can we not give out? The redaction feature that the deputy talked about is vital to public records requests because it'll save us hours and hours of time of going through them. For instance, if there's bystanders in the background of it, we don't want to be giving out the pictures of who is there. There are other things too, the evidentiary type things. For example, I know there was a recent case in a nearby town where there was a active homicide that just took place. The officers rolled up with their body cams. They got out, and there were lots of statements and evidentiary things that took place, which you would never have captured before. But you have to be careful with that on how you handle that and who is it. And also, you might have to go down, well, who was that in the video? You might not know. They might have left before you talk to them. So you have to go do some research on who that is. So it's very, very in-depth and complicated. But when you sift through it, it's not rocket science. They are, they're foreign to us here in Massachusetts, but these have been used for well over a decade across the country. It's just everything in law enforcement generally moves from west to east, and this is a good example of how that has happened. So all of these issues have been covered everywhere else.
And I think there's one of the points you had in the presentation is a big educational piece here too, with you have the videotapes of your subordinates, and things come to your attention. You got a teaching tool there. You can look at the encounter, say, this is what you did. This is the way we suggest you handle this thing going forward, and to have that up on the screen rather than just talk abstractly, I think is going to help you to train officers in individual situations.
Yeah, the video is a great way to learn.
It is.
And when you see officers in their action, not that anything really bad will happen. It's just some of this very simple things that can get forgotten, or you can do better, or there might be a better way to do something.
Yeah.
The better we get at our trade, the better off everybody is.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Tracy, comments, questions?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I know this has been many years of work in progress. And, when I think about it and I think about training and I think about all the potentials, I wish so much that we had these a few years ago, because the case before us now would be a lot easier for everybody. Not easier in sense of the loved ones that had to watch it, but easier in sense of being able to have firsthand account of what happened. So I'm all in favor of it. I'm thankful that our unions recognized the significance of this even before the law was enacted, and whatever support we can give, I think it just, like Mike said, it comes down to the financial aspects of it, and we need to move forward as fast as possible in getting these for the protection of not only the police but the citizens at large. So thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief, for the presentation, Deputy Chief. I I absolutely think this is where policing is, and that it has to be part of our future budgetary considerations. I'm concerned about the scope of the search. How many companies were actually looked at, and was who? I guess I would have liked to have a better handle on comparisons between different companies rather than just being given one.
I agree. I agree 100%. Matter of fact, when we spoke with the state police today, they went through quite an extensive bid process evaluation of 6 different companies. We should be receiving all of their documentation on what they went through to take a look at that. But what they basically came down to is the pricing was all about the same, but it's like everything else. One has a feature that's different than the other. For example, the one they went with, WatchGuard, one of the big features they have that Axon does not is it has a battery that can be removed and a new one put in, where the Axon has to go into a charger, so they can get weak during the course of the shift. Now they do have a charger that you put in the cruiser that you could charge them as you were working as well. So there are checks and balances, but that was a key difference in how they work. So we need to do more research, but what we do realize is the cost of all of these are generally in the same ballpark. And then they have to go out to bid. Okay. So when we go out to bid, we know how that goes sometimes.
Right.
So.
No, I think the RFP information will really be helpful. And I wonder, Chief, is there any possibility of trying to do like a bulk buy of these types of equipment, either through the state or the county, something to bring the cost down per unit?
Well, that certainly makes sense, right? And the state police, they have over 2,000 units that they purchased, and about, I think they said 1,000 cruiser cameras. They were 500 short on the cruiser cameras. So they got, I'm going to guess, very competitive pricing because of that bulk. The hope was that the state would come up with some type of bid process that's already done, so we all get the same value. That's what I talked about. Executive Office of Public Safety is looking into that. It just makes a lot of sense and saves a lot of time and energy when you know the requirements that each community has to do for purchases like this. It's a lot of work, and we're all doing the same thing, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to do it individually. But I agree with you 100%.
I appreciate the phasing in of the program. I think that allows us time to absorb the costs and unanticipated costs that are associated with this. I appreciate also the fact that you're going to actively pursue grant money. Anything we can get to reduce the cost to the taxpayer is going to be helpful. I wonder also, is there any way that some of the background in-house part of this couldn't eventually be absorbed into the department itself rather than paying a vendor? It sounds like the support is extremely expensive compared to the unit cost.
Deputy, I think you can speak on that, but I believe that doing it the way we propose is the better way to do it. We will have, our plan is we have a part-time records person, and Phil Magnuson. That position can be used to help some of the FOIA requests and maintain some of the system as far as documentation, et cetera. But the real key is having it in the cloud. And Kevin, you can explain on not, we wouldn't have to buy a server, et cetera.
There's 2 options that we could go with. The cloud storage is the better option. And as the chief mentioned, the state police went with WatchGuard. I have a meeting with them on Friday to get a sense of their costs. But the Mashpee Police Department is using WatchGuard. and their prices are comparable, either if it's an in-house where we get our own server, which I know Ed has spoken to in the past about, and I know the town is moving away from servers and they're trying to go to the cloud base, because that's one more piece of equipment that we have to maintain if something breaks. With Axon, they're really the leading, they're the industry standard on body cameras. That's the company that makes our taser. They've been doing this a long time. The fee is a lot. The $2,000 plus a year is definitely a lot, but that affords us some great flexibility, like working with the district attorney's office. They would get an account, and any body camera footage that is uploaded to a site called evidence.com, if it's a case that's going to court, the district attorney's office, a defense attorney, they would have access to that footage immediately, and they could download it. And then that saves us time in records preparing DVDs and CDs to go over to court. It takes out the issue of human error, of a piece of evidence getting lost or getting corrupt. It's all secure up in the cloud. There's nothing that we can do to take that away from Axon and reduce that cost. The videos are they're proprietary, they're encrypted, so we cannot change them at all. We cannot alter them at all. We can't even, when we're doing the demo, I was asking, is there a way that we can lighten up the background to see something? And they said, no, what the camera sees is what the camera sees. And you want that perspective because that's what an officer is seeing. There's nothing that we can do to change the footage at all. We can clip it, we can shorten it a little bit, but we can't do anything to the lighting or change it at all. So that fee that we pay, it also goes into the automatic maintenance program. So Axon has if you go back to WatchGuard, the WatchGuard camera is $995, and then it's $495 for the warranty. The Axon camera $699, and they do it's called a TAP program. It's for 5 years. So in year 2.5, if they come out with a body camera 4.0, we get that automatically at no cost to the department and any related equipment. When I was talking to the salesman, they're also doing some pricing right now. If the town wanted to do it and we could get it passed, they would do a 10-year deal at 2021 pricing. So we would not see a price increase for 10 years. We did that with the tasers that we just purchased. We locked in, we paid over, we got basically a 5-year program, but over a 3-year payment plan. So we're locked in we actually got the tasers at 2019 pricing. We can use an open source contract. So Sourcewell has a contract out there that saves us a little bit of money. If you look at that 3-year program, I think we saved maybe $1,000 over the 3 years. The problem with these companies is they're not very aggressive with their discounts because it's an open market and there's a lot of people that need these. So they're not really giving anything away. But they said that they would work with the town if we wanted to do something longer than 3 years. We could stretch the payments out and get pricing out to really to 2030 at today's cost, because they do go up. But back to your original question, Dan, there's nothing that we can do on the back end with the vendor. We have to pay that fee. They store everything for us. They manage it, but it's all our data. But it's like, again, I said, it's all proprietary. It takes any guesswork out of the legitimacy of the videos that we're releasing to the court or out to the community. There's nothing that we can do to change those.
Deputy,
Thank you. That information is very helpful. Chief?
Yeah, Deputy, correct me if I'm wrong, the pricing that we put in there, I think was somewhere around $365. That was a 3-year pricing plan, but a 5-year contract.
That is correct.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what kind of deal you could get for longer than 3 years, and we can put it in front of town meeting. The only other suggestion I have, Chief, is the committee that's putting together the policies. Are there any civilians on it?
Yes, it's quite a collection of personnel that's on the committee. I can send you, matter of fact, I'll do that. I'll send out who was on that committee.
How did you come up with a committee?
But I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
There are no civilians on the committee. The committee is myself, 2 representatives from the supervisors union, Sergeant Carcetti and Sergeant Fichter, and then 3 representatives from the patrol union, who is Patrol Officer Paul Mellett, Patrol Officer Justin Hare, and Patrol Officer Sean Reed.
The committee I was the committee I was speaking of is the one in the reform law, that
Right.
committee.
Right. Just a suggestion, I think, there's rights of civilians that are at stake here as well as officers. It might be prudent to have some input from someone outside of law enforcement. We can talk about that again in the future, but thank you. This is a lot of work you've put together, and it's something that we have to do. We just have to figure out how to afford it. And I think with your phased approach and some little more work with the RFP in the state, maybe we can do that. Thank you.
That's great. Did any other board members have any more comments or questions? That's great. Chief, Deputy Chief, thank you for the briefing. This was incredibly informative tonight. I just want to note for those that are watching or paying attention to the meeting tonight that this priority of body cameras is not something new. This is something that the police department here in Yarmouth has had an interest in doing for quite some time. And I think it's a reflection of the vision of the leadership of our police department and thinking ahead and being on top of these things. So I want to commend you, Chief and Deputy Chief, for your work on this. And I think you're hearing a tremendous amount of support from the board. And I think our challenge is just working together to figure out how, with the budgeting process as it's playing out, where we can make inroads so that we can start implementing this program as soon as possible. So that's the message. That's the message you're getting tonight from us. And like I said, there's a lot of support, and we want to work with you to make this a reality.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the support you always give us. We're blessed in this town, and we want to make sure we're doing what you expect as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, that concludes our discussions and deliberations on this topic. I'd like to go back to where we were before. I think we had wrapped up the upcoming agenda review. I didn't know if there was anything else, if there were any other upcoming agenda items that we needed to discuss as a board. Hearing none, then I'll go on to individual items. Dan, do you have an individual item or two?
Just a question.
Yes.
A week or so ago, we got an email or a communication from Town Hall indicating that people going to the dump without stickers could bring a receipt that they could get provided by the Town Hall. I'm hearing a lot about some of our older citizens that are concerned that they haven't gotten their stickers and don't know about receipts or anything. Do we have a policy going on right now as far as what's being enforced at the town dump? And
I think the town administrator was going to address this question in his update, but I'm happy to, if the interim assistant town administrator had mentioned this topic to me before, that it was something that he was working on. Bob, do you want to respond to this now and save it from your updates?
Sure. The simple answer is yes. My belief is that Jeff Colby had instructed the people at the disposal area to accept the receipt that is given when someone orders their stickers. Now, maybe what we need to do is to make that more readily available to make sure people understand that. What I was going to talk about was some new initiatives. After talking with Mary Bilbon of the Chamber, they are in some cases overwhelmed with the number of people that want to get the sticker immediately. So in meeting today with Bob Rittenauer's approval, we met with Ed Centio and Susan Ripley, the treasurer, and they've come up with a plan to, during the week, to be able to issue stickers in Town Hall through the front vestibule. Now, we have to get some details on this, but the plan would be to possibly put a desk out there, not open the door, but there's enough room to have the application slip in. The employee would be able to check it computerized on the computer and then issue the sticker right there. We probably will be able to do that. The other thing that we can do and have been doing, but maybe we didn't get the word out often enough, is that if someone wishes to get a sticker, there are forms right by the side door of Town Hall. They can simply fill it out, put their check in an envelope, put it in the blue deposit box, and if they put their phone number on it, on the request, that the town employees will create the sticker and call them and say, you can come by and pick up the sticker that'll be right outside for you. So we are trying to look at that. There is a weekend problem at the chamber, and we're trying to see what we can do to assist the chamber with that. A lot of people just don't want to use any other form, and they want to get the immediate gratification, I guess, to get the sticker. We may have to put some money into that. I've talked to Mary Vilbon. The first step is to try to do more during the week with current staff, and then see. We're getting a little concerned with Memorial Day coming up, and there's a big push, and people wait till the weekend. People wait till the end to try to get their stickers. So we are trying to accommodate that. I think in a round way answers the question, but also gives you some additional information.
No, it does. You're doing everything you can. I just know that I've heard from a few people that are concerned because they haven't gotten it in the mail, and
yep,
they didn't print it. They don't know what to do.
Okay. We can get more out on that, and I know that that Ed Sedio has been doing some work with the company that provides the stickers. I think earlier in the month of March, it was taking 3 to 4 weeks. It took me 3.5 weeks to get mine, but he did, let's say, strongly encourage the company to add more staff, which they did do. That my understanding is they cut down the response time to about 2 weeks. Ed can chime in if I'm giving some incorrect information, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman, but I think that's what was happening.
No,
and I see he's unmuted himself, if that's okay with you.
Go ahead, Ed.
I just want to add, if somebody hasn't received their sticker, they can call either City Hall Systems or Town Hall, and we can either produce the sticker for them, call them up and have them pick it up, or we can produce the receipt for them. Call us up and they can come pick it up, or we can mail it to them.
So when they call Town Hall, Ed, who should they call? Which department? Which person? Give me a name.
Collector Treasurers, extension 1233.
That's great. Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank
Does
you.
that help answer your questions, Selectman Horgan?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Very good. Individual items, Tracy Post.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing that up, Dan. I know my husband went to the landfill last weekend, and he had the receipt on his phone from the email. It's been more than 3 weeks, so it's good for people to know that that's a possibility. But he showed it, and he had no problems getting through. I just want to mention Steve Garvin. Steve was a member of our, we've had so many losses lately of long-term volunteers, and Steve is a long-term member of our energy committee. And, it's sad to recognize him when he's passed, but I just want to thank his family for sharing him with us. And we're all better for people who volunteer and people like Steve that volunteer their time for the town. I just wanted to make sure we mention that. That's all. Thank you.
That's very nice. Thank you, Tracy. Mike Stone.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to welcome our new town administrator, Bob Wittenauer. I am happy to see you here on a full-time basis. It seems time's gone by very quickly. I remember Eric and I were doing interviews back in December, and then the full board in January, and here you are. And with your extensive experience, your education, your knowledge of the issues on the Cape, I think you're gonna have a great impact on our community, and I look forward to working with you. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank your other cohort, Bob Lawton, for the work he's done, and I'm sure that at least on transitional basis, you guys will work great together, and between the two of you and the experience you have, I think the town's in very good hands. And so my congratulations to both of you.
That's great, Mike. Thank you. I should note that when Bob Rittenauer started his job, his tenure 10 years ago in Oak Bluffs, in one of his first meetings, he gave a budget presentation and he got a standing ovation. And then I noticed that in his departure from Oak Bluffs, he got a parade. And so the expectations are high here in Yarmouth, Bob. We're very good at doing parades, and we're very good at doing standing ovations. So we'll be looking for a very strong performance here in Yarmouth. I join. We've got a canine here to drop in on us to say, what a beautiful dog, Tracy. How about an introduction here? Who's this?
It's my grand doggy. That's Camper. Say hi, Camper.
So you're getting a welcome from Camper as well.
This is why I don't usually do Zoom at home, because he likes to bark.
Yeah, there you go. So Bob, I join with the rest of the board members here in welcoming you. And obviously, you dived in right in the deep end of the pool. We've had obviously some interesting issues to discuss tonight, and obviously, only being here a day, you demonstrated your value and your grasp of very, very complicated financial items, and it's been duly noted, let's say, and we appreciate that as well. So thank you. So let's see. Now, the next item on the agenda is town administrator updates. So let me go to Mr. Rittenauer, and then I don't know if you two are tag teaming on this, but I'm going to turn it over to the town administrator.
Yeah, I think Bob's got all of the meat, and I've got not very much. But listen, I just want to say briefly how great it is to finally be here in Yarmouth. It's very gratifying for me, and I start my duties with a very high degree of enthusiasm. I've spent the last 2 days primarily meeting the staff, department heads. What a great team that we have here in town. We have with some of the larger departments scheduled for the remainder of this week. I know we're going to be doing DPW tomorrow, and fire and police, and we're going to go through all of their details, and those will be moving forward. And again, I thank Mr. Chairman for bringing me over for a personal meeting with the superintendent of schools. Given all of these budget issues, was critically important to do on the first day that I was here, and we've accomplished that. I again have spent a good deal of time already reviewing some of these budget issues, coming up to speed on just a myriad of things. And folks here in town have been very generous with their time, and that's meant a lot to me. But I really especially need to single out and thank Bob Lawton. What a tremendous resource that he's been, not only for the town, but for me personally. And I have agreed with everything that he said, and then just drank in so much of the background of information. And I also wanted to mention Ed Sentiu, who he's been giving me a crash course on all of the financial issues. And really there's a complicated array of various things that are pressuring the general fund service delivery, and he's really got a good handle on those. And I think we're going to have a great team. I'm glad we brought up the goals, and I look forward to working with Selectman Stone on trying to put this into a format that when the board, is whole and full, that we can hit the ground running with that. Things are moving at a very rapid pace, as they do this time of year, and I'm up for the challenge, and I'm here on the job. So thank you very much for the kind words. And I know Bob's got a number of things that we were talking about that he wants to just keep the board apprised of, and so I'll leave it at that. But thanks again.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Lawton.
said most of the things earlier because of the stickers were the most important thing today. But we are working together, and I'm really glad Bob is here too.
That's great. So that's it?
Thank you. Yes, sir. For
Okay.
me. Yep.
Well, thank you both. The next item on the agenda is adjournment. So do we have a
So
motion?
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, Selectman Stone.
Aye.
You had to think about that.
Yeah, you did. Tracy Post.
Aye.
Ann Horgan. Chair votes aye.